So I'm going live now. Good evening, everybody. We are waiting for some more people to join, and then we will kick off the presentation. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. Let's start. My name is Alejandro Falcón, CIBSE UAE Social Secretary and Events Organizer, and I welcome you today to our CIBSE UAE webinar, Job Search Mastery in the Pandemic and Beyond. For those who don't know, CIBSE's responsibility as a region is to promote the intellectual welfare of its members and improve the understanding of building service engineering within our society by organizing events and other activities related to the built environment. Today's agenda is a speaker introduction, a speaker's agenda, notes of the live session, a speaker presentation, Q&A session, and finally close out. Our speaker today is James Mowat, Associate Director for Energi People. James has over 15 years experience specializing in the recruitment of MEP engineers from junior throughout to managing director level throughout the MENA region. By partnering with his clients and forming a strong relationship with the talent across the region for well over a decade, James and his team at Energi People have helped build design and project teams for the majority of the world's largest projects. James is incredibly passionate about the MENA MEP building service industry. To this end, Energi People sponsored CIBSE UAE First Dinner in Dubai in 2016 and have sponsored many of the MEP Middle East Awards events for over 6 years. Energi People is a privately owned UK-based recruitment consultancy established in 2002, specializing within building service and structural engineering recruitment. The UK base has never stopped them from being experts within our sector, as they have always traveled many times a year to visit their clients and candidates, a testament to the long-term commitment to the region and our industry. With combined experience of over 200 years in the construction engineering recruitment and staffing space covering every continent in the world, Energi People have truly established themselves as leaders in our field. Today's webinar topics are ways to make your job search the most effective, how to choose the right recruitment consultant for you, top CV tips, what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for, personal branding and the importance of it, making yourself stand out in a crowded market of job seekers. If you have questions, please write them in the Q&A panel. You'll see a symbol at the top right-hand side of your screen, and your question will be answered by the speaker during the Q&A session. Your camera will be off and your mic will be mute. So without further delay, we give way to our speaker of the day, James Mowat. James, the call is all yours.
Hello, thank you very much for the very warm introduction. I'm just literally going to share my presentation with you now. Firstly, just a big thank you actually to everyone at CIBSE UAE, Alejandro and Farah, specifically for inviting me to do this event, and everyone for attending on a Friday evening as well. Thank you also to Julian and Alejandro for taking the time to show me how to use this platform as well, because you'd probably be reading my emails otherwise. So thank you very much, both of you, for doing that, taking the time out of your days. And for me personally, I'd love to be there with you all in Dubai at the minute. It's been a long time since I've travelled to visit you all, to see you face to face, but very grateful that we have this platform that we can use, so I can, as I say, share my tips and insights from my 15 years of experience within building services, recruitment and recruiting throughout the whole of the GCC. Makes me feel very old when I say that, but I aim to bring some real powerful takeaways for you as well, to really have a positive impact on your job search for now and the future. So I'll kick off with the presentation, and the first point on this slide is how to make your job search effective. So the way I always look at this is really, do you want to just sit there and endlessly apply for jobs? I know that job searching can quite literally feel like a full-time job. So what I want to do is give you a lot of tips to really narrow that down and make it the most effective use of your time. Really, you want to be looking at the company that you want to work for, and actually going out there and finding those jobs that really do complement your skill set and the companies where you can actually thrive as well. And as I say, I know it can really feel like a full-time job to find a job, but it needs a lot of good preparation outside of just sitting there and clicking apply. So the first one for me really is to make a plan. I'm sure all of you will agree that for any changes in life, whatever that may be, you need a roadmap and an idea of how you're going to get there. Your job search is exactly the same. Changing jobs is really a big thing in life. It has such an impact. If you know you've got family, or even if you haven't, if you're on your own, it's a big step that people make when it comes to transitioning to a new role and a new company. So make a plan, set yourself measurable goals, think about specifically the company that you want to work for, what role do you want, what's going to suit you, and really when, where and how you're going to get that. So spend the time, definitely take the time to actually make a constructive plan of how you're going to find the job that you want, that's going to really help you progress within your career. The second point for me is track your job search. It's so important for you to track what you've applied for and also where your CV is sent to. I'll touch on some of these points again in the next slides, just in terms of working with recruiters like myself and the many others that are out there. But you don't want to dilute your CV in the market at all, and you don't want to be doubling up applications to businesses as well, because it doesn't look very good. And also, if you track it, with all due respect, I know you engineers love a spreadsheet, so maybe track your job search on a spreadsheet. You can separate it for how you've applied for that specific role, the company you've applied for, the date you've applied, so you can actually really measure everything in terms of how your job search is going, and again, where your CV has actually gone to. It's incredibly important, and it allows you as well to follow up effectively. So within 48 hours, 72 hours after you've applied for something, after you've potentially spoken to either a recruiter or directly to a business, then you actually have a much easier record of everything, where it's gone, what stage you're at with each application, so you can really have a bit of a plan to actually go forward with your job search as well. The third point is research, and more research. And that's quite literally across the business itself that you're applying for, to actually research what they do. Does that align with your own values personally, and also can they support you in your development, your career development? Look at their culture. Most companies' websites will have all this information on there. Some do take a little bit more digging than others, but it's worth taking that time to really do your research on the business as well. You can use LinkedIn too. LinkedIn's a really powerful platform in many ways to actually look at employees of businesses as well, and to do your own research to how long do people stay in these businesses. that can give you a good idea too. And also looking at the employees, how they progressed. If you can see someone that's continually progressed within a specific business, that to me says a lot about the value that they place on their employees, which is absolutely paramount if you want to progress your career. So basically spend the time to really find out about them. And again, as I say, do find out about their values and your experience and how that aligns with them as well. If it's a business that does similar projects to what you've done in your portfolio, then obviously that's going to be really important. But likewise, if they do data centers, for example, and you've spent the majority of your own career working on residential or whatever it may be, then that actually could be a good step up in progression for you to gain more experience outside of what you've done. And as I say, really do look at how the business, in terms of their values, their About Us page potentially, and how that can actually help you advance within your career and help you develop. If you've got friends within the businesses, reach out to your friends. I know job searching, it's quite a confidential thing a lot of the time, but if you have people that you trust, that you know, that have worked for businesses that you would like to work for, then spend that time talking to those people to, as I say, just find out more about their cultures. How has your friend or previous colleague progressed? What value can that business give to you as well in your career, and also your life as well? One of the big things at the minute, or for the last couple of years, but especially now, is work-life balance, which I don't think used to exist. And for you guys, when you have submissions, I know it probably feels like it doesn't exist sometimes, but spend the time to really do that research, as I say, and reach out to people so you really have actually a good understanding of the business itself before you send your submission and application in. The next thing for me is avoid just clicking apply, which for me is so important. And the thing, again, I will touch on shortly when it comes to working with recruiters, is your CV at the minute could quite literally end up in a pile of hundreds, if not thousands. Some of the jobs that I have advertised on LinkedIn and other job platforms as well have had up to 900 applications. And I don't mean to say that to put you off, but that is just the reality of how things are. So to make yourself stand out, which again I will touch on in the next few slides, it's really important for you at the minute to make yourself stand out and not just be click and apply endlessly to jobs. Contact recruiters directly, contact the companies directly, preferably by telephone, not just by emails, because again, emails can get sent to junk folders. They can end up feeling like a bit of a black hole sometimes, some people's inboxes. So really do make that time. And for me, it really shows a lot of character as well. If somebody phones me up and says, I've seen your vacancy that you're advertising for X role in X location, this is why I am the candidate for you, that quite literally makes me go, whoa, okay, I really need to put some time and effort into this candidate. It shows your character, it shows initiative. And I will touch on another point as well when it comes to CVs, but with respect to CV, essentially, I've always said is almost like a poster almost of your experience. So you really want to try and speak to people on the telephone as much as you can. It's a lot easier to influence and potentially relay your experience and why that is relevant on the telephone than it is by just writing an email and hoping that person might read it. You'll get a lot better response. As I say, it just shows that initiative and shows how committed you are as well to finding a new opportunity. I did this myself actually many years ago when I couldn't actually find a job. A lot of you know my personal story from many years ago, and a lot of people, because of the address I was living in a youth hostel, people wouldn't give me a job. Even Tesco's. Disclaimer, there are other supermarkets, but they wouldn't give me a job, and that was just because I kept literally clicking apply, and people knew of the address where I was staying, so there was a big perception of the youth that would be at that address. So I, being stubborn and driven as I am, I made my plan, I tracked what I was doing, I did my research, and I actually made the time to pick up the telephone and talk to people. And that, I'm pretty sure, is one of the reasons why I'm still sat here today, is because of that proactive nature. So make sure you carry that with you in your job search, most definitely, and really do, as I say, just avoid just endlessly clicking apply for roles, because it's frustrating as well. The next point is always following up with a recruiter or a hiring manager. After you've clicked apply, if you've done your research, if you've spoken to somebody on the telephone, always follow up afterwards. A well-written email for me goes a huge way in actually, again, demonstrating your character. And it's just a show of appreciation as well. I think anybody that's met anybody before, if you get a message afterwards saying thank you very much for your time, or whether it be on the phone, whatever it may be, that leaves a lasting impact with people as well. So really important to follow up. And again, that actually can make you stand out if your CV has fallen by the wayside, if people have been very busy with meetings and all sorts of things. It can help you stand out again as well by actually making sure that you follow up. And for me personally, I've been guilty of it. I think every recruiter and a lot of us as people have as well, that we miss things. We all do. As much as we'd like to avoid missing things, whether it be an email or calling somebody back, texting your family members or something, it's really important, and it just makes you stand out, as I say, and reminds people that you're there, which is very important, especially, as I say, when there are a lot of people applying for jobs at the minute. You really want to take that time to make sure you follow up. So the next slide is how to choose the right recruitment consultant for you. This, I'm sure you can imagine, is something I could talk to you about for days, weeks and months, but I'll do you a favour and not bore you to death with it all. So I've got a few points that I want to discuss with you, and how you actually are best fitted to find the right recruiter for you. This is your career. It's, you're trusting someone with your life to a degree that, as I say, it has a huge impact changing jobs. So you're not ordering a t-shirt online, and it doesn't matter if you click Amazon or wherever it may be. Again, put the time in and put the work in to find someone that is actually going to put in the work for you. I'm sure a lot of you know, in the UK specifically, it's illegal for a recruiter to charge anybody any money, which is absolutely right. So we have to plan our time and our days very efficiently and very effectively, as you guys do when it comes to your projects as well. So you need to find that someone who's going to take the time to get to know you personally and professionally as well. The most successful recruiters that I've ever known, in our industry and other industries as well, they take that time to actually get to know their candidates and to build partnerships with them, as I'm very lucky to say that I have done as well. And that was one of the key things as to why for so many years I've travelled across the world to see most of you, to meet you for a coffee, to see who you are and actually get to know you. Again, a CV for me, as I say, really it's just like a poster of your experience. It's an overview, it's an advert. So I want to find and actually see people and meet them face to face. At the minute, clearly I can't, sadly, and clearly a lot of us recruiters can't, but Teams meetings, I'm doing that every day at the minute to meet candidates. And it helps me build relationships with people. It helps me get a good feel for who this candidate is. So I'm personally very lucky, actually, I think I can safely say, to have built some very long-lasting friendships over these years with a lot of the guys and girls that I've been very lucky to meet many times, actually, and I've had some fun times with a lot of you as well. So really, as I say, make sure you take the time for this as well, and really analyze it too, which I'll cover in these points coming up. But you want that person that's going to make the effort to get to know you beyond your CV, essentially. Long term, not short term. And I think that kind of goes back to my point of what I mentioned about when it comes to just applying for a job. You probably get a recruiter that may call you that may not be that experienced, that all they'll ask you is, what's your salary, what money do you want, when are you available, and that's it. to an extent. They're not the people that you want to be working with at all. So the first point for me is speaking to your friends and colleagues in the industry. The same as going to a good restaurant. You know, if you've spoken to one of your friends, family, or colleagues about a certain place, absolutely you're going to go there, aren't you? Because experiences count, and the people that you can rely on that have had positive experiences with recruitment consultants, that's what you want to find. That's what you want to speak. They're the people that you want to speak to. And as I touched on again a minute ago, recommendations are really, really powerful, and it can give you a good gauge of who it is that you're going to be speaking to, whether that's me, whether it's who else of recruiters that may be out there. Just really spend that time. I know it can be tough. You might not want to, you know, when we can be in the office, sit across the desk and say, you know, who's the best recruiter you've dealt with, and never ask your boss. That's probably a good thing to mention, because I think that'll be quite obvious you're looking for a job. But the trusted people, as I mentioned earlier, have a chat with them and try and get some recommendations of some recruitment consultants that have actually made a positive impact on people's careers, because they're the sorts of recruiters that you want to be working with. Find a proven expert. This, to me, all of these points are very important, but this is really powerful. Do your, again, research, do your own research on LinkedIn, rather than just sitting there and applying for a job. Find a recruitment consultant that is experienced, someone that has a lot of recommendations potentially on their LinkedIn page as well. Because again, that demonstrates a professional, that demonstrates somebody that has made a positive impact on people's careers, possibly on their life, from the change in job. And you'll be able to get a good gauge of that, and finding someone that's worked within our industry for quite a long time, they're going to know their clients inside out. You know, that's so important, and this is what you need, as their clients will trust them. If I'm going to speak to a client of mine about a specific candidate, touch wood, most of them will trust me because they've worked with me for so long. So if I say a candidate is excellent and I've taken references on that individual, then I would be pretty confident that that client will go ahead and interview that candidate, or at least hear me out to actually relay that candidate's experience and, you know, the real plus points and of that candidate's experience and what makes them different. So that's a real key thing for me. And you need someone that's going to literally represent you as your agent, so to speak, that understands our industry, your industry if you're in a separate industry, that can actually, again, relay your experience correctly. They'll understand what it is that you do day by day. I can't design a HVAC system to save a life, but I understand what you guys do and girls do, and I understand specifically on what it is that actually makes a good candidate at specific levels, because I've done it for so long, and many of you have helped me with that as well, in getting a deeper understanding of the industry. And as I say, that recruiter, me or whoever that's an expert, they're going to give you the best chance of getting a new role, ultimately, and that's the most important thing. You want someone that you have confidence in to actually represent you in the best way possible. The way that I've always looked at things, and people that have worked with me, for me, whatever way you want to look at it, as a recruitment consultant, I've always said to them, when you hang up the phone, you want that individual, whether it be a client or a candidate, to think he or she is the person for me. They're going to find me the job, and they have confidence in you, so they don't need to speak to 10 other recruiters. They don't need to sit there and apply for jobs all day. That literally is our job, is to have that lasting impact on people. So find that expert within your specific sector and reach out to them. The other point is working with agencies. There's always, I think, a bit of a misconception that less is more, that more is more in many ways, that the more jobs you apply for, to a degree, the higher chance that you may get of actually getting a role. But do you want a role? Do you just want a job? Or do you want a position within a business that's going to help you advance your career? Less is more. That's the message. When you're working with experts, you don't need to work with loads of agencies. As I say, you should feel confident in that individual that's working with you and for you, essentially. to actually help you find your next opportunity. So I see it all the time here in the UK specifically. It's very frustrating is your CV, if you work with loads of recruiters and you're speaking to anyone and everyone, it gets diluted in the market. It's what we call here a scattergun approach, which that's not how you want yourself to be represented by your CV going over here, there and everywhere within the market. So for me, ideally one, that would be the best, but a maximum of 3, preferably 1, as I say. You don't want your reputation to you know, get diluted out there whatsoever. Double ups as well, as I say, I've had it a lot recently where for me, I take a lot of time, as some of you that have spoken to me before will know, to gauge your experience, to gauge your skill sets, to gauge your strengths. What points do you need development on? Everyone needs development. We're never the finished article. And many times I've spoken to so many candidates and they'll say, nope, I haven't applied here. I spoke to 5 recruiters, but you know, they've only told me about this job specifically with a certain business. So me being me, I'll take the time. I've told them about specific companies that I work with, that I partner with, and I'll give them the information. I'll send them the website, I'll send them the job description, I'll tell them about the hiring managers, I'll give them the whole complete picture of who that business is, what they do, and why I think they'll be good for you for your career. I do all that, I speak to the hiring manager, and they'll say, no, sorry, we've received this CV 4 times. And that drives me up the wall, because it's the recruiters, we have a bad name, which, you know, it goes with the job, unfortunately, but it is still out there that people will not represent you in the right way, and multiple agencies having your CV is not a good thing. I've had it recently where clients have come back to me on a specific candidate, a similar sort of story, and the client said to me quite literally, no, James, I'm sorry, great CV, but I don't want to get into an argument when it comes to fees. So that's essentially the other recruiters had potentially cost this candidate a job, because, you know, they haven't spoken to them about the specific company, the specific role. And in some instances, with all due respect, some of the candidates have been guilty for it as well, for not tracking their job search. And that's why I go back to that point I mentioned earlier, that's so important to track where your CV is going. But the last thing you want to do is, you know, people not representing you properly, diluting your CV in the market, and then that costing you a potential interview with a business that you want to work for. I step away personally, but that can happen, and it's not good. You don't want that. So leading on to that, which is really important, is look for transparency and honesty, or honesty and transparency from a recruitment consultant. You have to work with someone that wants to work with you, and you know, you really need to know where your CV is going as well. If you've done your research on this specific recruiter, you should feel confident that they will be honest and transparent with you. Don't get me wrong, but as I always say with everything, proof's in the pudding. So, you know, just speak to them and try and gauge that. And are they being open and honest with you, or are they being like a closed book? For me, I've been very lucky to have, and am very lucky to have, some really long-lasting relationships with my clients that I've worked with all over the world for many years. So I'm not frightened to tell a candidate who the specific company is at all. It's not a problem. You know, I'm confident if they give me a job exclusively, then I can tell the candidate. The only instances that I couldn't do that is if I've been asked for certain reasons to actually not disclose the company's name. If it's a very senior opportunity, for example, I'm working on a few at the minute, I can't mention the company's name because essentially I'm bound to an NDA. I can't disclose the company's information, but 95% of the time, I'll be more than happy to tell the candidate of who the company is. You know, why would you want your CV to go somewhere that you don't know who the company is? And again, you won't be able to track your job search. You want someone that's honest and transparent with you completely. You know, get their opinion on what are your aspirations. The job market, for example, get them to be honest and transparent with you. If I don't want to paint a bad picture, but if they say the Dubai market is incredible at the minute and everyone's employing, then, you know, I think that gives you a good gauge, because it's tough. It really is. And you know, do you trust them to give you advice in what they think you should do for your career as well, whether that may be to go and get a different qualification, or to work on some other types of projects to meet the goals that you have for your career as well. I've had quite a few candidates, and I do fairly regularly have people that will take the time to call me to ask for advice, which that really takes me back. It really does. I don't expect it from certain people that may have applied to a business, and they'll ask me, should I take this job? And that says a lot in terms of the honesty and the trust that's there, and that's what you really want to forge. And it goes both ways. That's something I must mention as well, is that you must also demonstrate your honesty and transparency as well with a recruitment consultant. Okay. And another key point, you can tell I like goals and targets and tracking things, can't you? Agree milestones, because if you put a plan together, you want to know what the likelihood is of you getting a job. When are we likely to get feedback? When are we likely to get an interview? And any good recruiter will give you and agree milestones with you. If it isn't too much for you to ask, it isn't to make a plan. That's essentially all you're asking for is, okay, you're going to represent me. What is the next stage? Where is my CV going? Who are we going to target, or who are you going to target for me? It's your career after all, as I say, so you're more than entitled to get this transparency, as I say before, and agree these milestones with the recruiter. So you've got a plan in place for you, so you have some sort of an idea of how the next few weeks, or if it may be months or days, whatever it may be, sometimes hours if you're that lucky, of how things will actually progress. So really do make sure you ask those questions. And as I say, any good recruiter won't be non-committal and say, I don't know. They'll actually be more than happy to agree those milestones with you. Okay. Top CV tips and what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. So CVs, it's very subjective. I know it is. I've read so many things online and spoken to so many people that say 2-page CV, 3-page CV, 4-page CV, condense it, don't put much information on it, etc., etc. So I know it's tough, and recruiters and hiring managers genuinely, I know I do, can sometimes take 30 seconds in deciding, if not less, if a candidate is actually suitable for a specific role, or if that candidate is someone that they can work with and help them find a new position. So sadly, not everyone is going to think laterally and phone you. That is the reality, to ask you if you have that experience that they're looking for, whether that be a business, as I say, or whether that be a recruiter as well. Time is of the essence. There's many clients that I know that actually have skipped through a CV and not missed things. They've missed things, but that's my job as well to relay that. But also there's some accountability for the applicant as well, the candidate, to showcase that on their CV as well. You guys and girls do some incredible things, and that's why I love our industry so much. The projects that you work on, the projects that you deliver, these incredible buildings, the sustainability side of things, there's incredible things that you will do, which I would love to know how to do. So sell yourself, make it stand out on your CV, make it shout out to people that you are an exceptional candidate, you've got that experience, and it really will highlight it very well indeed. The first point for me on this, apart from all of that, is do the basics and do them well. I've had candidates that have approached me and said to me, it's your job to do my CV. It's your job, you're the recruiter. And they don't take that accountability for that. Firstly, I don't really think I can work with people that have that mindset, but it's just literally doing the basics. Make sure your spelling is correct. Make sure the grammar is correct. Or as good as it can be if it's not your first language, for example. Make sure that the punctuation is there, and the presentation of your CV, the layout of the CV is good. And there's loads of different templates, of course, that you can find on Word, and all sorts of different things that are free that you can find online in terms of the layout of the CV itself, because you want it to be easily read. You want it to showcase your experience easily. So as I say, that 30 seconds and less that it can take for someone to make a decision on your CV as to whether they're going to get you in for an interview, that's what you've got to do to make it stand out. And the spelling and grammar, always set. If you're applying for a job that's in English, of course, make sure your word dictionary is set to UK English, because just the silly little things that, you know, if a key part of a principal engineer role that I'm recruiting for is someone that can write technical reports really well in English, then I'm going to scrutinize that CV and look for it. So just make sure you take that time, make sure you put in the effort to do the basics and to do them well. The next point is to sell yourself and elaborate on what your role actually entails. So again, I know this is hard, trying to put in the right amount of information, but not too much. But you want to showcase what you did, what your role actually entails or entailed itself. As I said earlier, you all work on some absolutely breathtaking projects across the world, and the impact that you have on human life and comfort is a huge thing. You know, we not at the minute, but a lot of us spend time in the offices or at home a huge amount of time. So the fact that you can all make people sit there in comfort is absolutely incredible. So showcase those things that you've done. What value did you bring? What did you do? What was the impact that you made on that project? What was the cost savings potentially that you made if you did the resource schedule and whatever it may be, or if a project finished ahead of schedule and saved X amount of money? Make sure you put that on there as well, rather than just building how many floors it was, HVAC mechanical design engineer, etc., etc. Put some information and some important information on the CV for each project or role specifically. Sorry, your role on that project was, to really showcase that. The other thing is achievements. A lot of people, you know, are quite guilty of not wanting to sell themselves. They don't realise that the information that they're not putting on their CV doesn't portray them in the best way. Put your achievements on there in a section, ideally, of what you have actually done to make an impact, in whatever way, shape or form that may be. Whether, again, as I say, it could be cost savings, it could be turning a team around, it could be winning new business. That's a real key thing at the minute. A lot of companies are looking for candidates that have that ability to network and to actually go out and proactively win business. So if you've done that, put some figures, put some stats, put some real achievements on there of what it is that you personally have achieved. If you're not at a principal level, for example, and you're an intermediate or you're a graduate, then just make sure you showcase some stuff that shows your character, you know, what exactly it is specifically that you have achieved, what have you done, and make sure that's put in the CV. I think that's really, really important. This, again, I know I'm asking you all for a lot of time, but as I say, it really does take time to make sure that you get the right role and the right business for you. So tailor your CV for the role that you're applying for. One thing that I recommend to a lot of candidates is to have a master CV, so to speak, that has, excuse me, the general experience that you have on a 2-3 page document, ideally. Don't lie, but make sure that you tailor a separate CV for a role that you're applying for. So that will help, essentially, the CV not being 20 pages long. I know some of you that are in the latter stages of your career, if you put every project that was on your CV, it would be about 100 pages. So tailor it. If you're applying for a job, a lot of roles that I've got at the minute are more on the data center and mission critical side. And it happens to me all the time that I get clients that will come back to me and just say, well, what data center experience have they got? What critical systems experience have they got? And that's not necessarily showcased on that CV. So make sure that you're doing that. You're spending the time to actually tailor the CV for the role you're applying for. Essentially, I mean this with all due respect to any internal hiring managers or recruitment managers that may be on this webinar, but generally, a lot of the time, you will get people that will A to A match, as I say. So A to A matching essentially is we have a job description, it says we need this, and they will look for that in the CV. If it doesn't tick every box, a lot of the time, unfortunately, those CVs will get rejected. It frustrates me because I want people to talk to people to find that out, but as I say, it's also you're accountable for yourself, is taking that time to tailor the CV for that role you're applying for, because it matches. And then, you know, what reason has somebody got to decline you for that specific role you've applied if it's screaming out at somebody that you've got the experience that they're looking for? So spend the time, take the time to actually tailor your CV. You could have 2 or 3 CVs that one might showcase healthcare, one might showcase critical systems experience, and another residential. Something along those lines, as I say, and to emphasize, don't lie, but just make sure that you're giving yourself the best opportunity. As I say, some people sadly only really look for the specifics of what they want. What they want is, what I mean by that is the actual hiring manager themselves. So spend that time to do that, and put a couple of CVs together. The other thing which I love personally is project portfolios. Everybody that I know, I think, loves a visual, and as I said earlier, the incredible projects that you will work on across the world, it's important to showcase that and put some pictures on it. Build a project portfolio as a separate document. I had a candidate actually yesterday evening, is the best example for this that I could give you, really. I spoke to her, and there was a bit of experience about specific projects on her CV, which is great. I thought that would be enough. I spoke to the client, sent the CV over, and the client's come back to me and said, I'm sorry, she doesn't have enough X projects experience. So yesterday evening, she actually put together a project portfolio which showcases all of that experience, and she's also included, I think, their schematics on that PDF document as well, which I literally sat there and thought, wow, somebody, you know, this lady has taken the time to do that quickly to showcase her experience, which to me makes me even more passionate and eager to help this lady in securing a new opportunity as well. And it helps as well if you're worried about your CV being 6, 7, 10 pages long, or 100 pages for some of you, all the projects that you've worked on. Get the CV to showcase your experience and what your roles have entailed and the businesses that you've worked for, your qualifications, etc., your achievements, and have a separate project portfolio that could be it could be a presentation if you wanted it to be, or it could be a PDF document that has the project, it has specifics on the role that you actually held on that project, to really showcase what you did. And as I say, it really highlights, for me as well, quite a level of initiative as well for a candidate to do that, to again take the time to put these sorts of things together. So they're my top tips for CVs. And the next point is the power of personal branding. In this day and age, the digitally driven era that I can safely say we're in, especially as most of us around the world are sat at home most of the time now, everything is all driven online. It's sad to say that, you know, a lot of the time perception is a big thing, and people can actually, you know, judge people in the wrong way from how they're actually representing themselves online. I'm not trying to compare anybody to a Mars bar or something like that in terms of a product brand, but try and think about yourself as well in that way, as a brand, and how you actually portray yourself online. How are you perceived by the content that you share, the things that you may put on your LinkedIn, and these are just some things that I'll touch on now. So personal branding, it is how you portray yourself online. The content that you publish, the content that you share, what you comment as well has quite a big impact, and I don't think some people really do realise that. You know, if I comment on a post, a lot of other people that are connected to me are going to see that. So think about the things that you are actually commenting on. Think of the things that you're sharing. Does this align with you and your values and what you believe? Does it help you in your job search? Does it help the personal brand that you're trying to create of yourself as an engineer, as an expert in the field that you work in, and think about the subjects that are aligned to you as well. If you're passionate about sustainability, then create some content around that as well, and think about those things that, as I say, are important to you. For me personally, I'm sure a lot of you, as I touched on earlier, the stuff I do with Step by Step, that's part of my personal brand because it's close to my heart. That's something that's really powerful for me and something I'm very passionate about. So don't be scared to sometimes blend that into the actual professional aspects, as long as you're not sharing things that are not to be shared on LinkedIn. Of course, it's not Facebook, but to do have a bit of time and maybe take some time to reflect specifically on how you want to be perceived. How do you want recruiters and potential hiring managers to think of you? And if you're going to create some content, create it with a purpose. If you publish an article online, industry relevant or not, make the purpose of that obvious and powerful. So I've seen some things recently that a few of my connections have shared where they've written articles on LinkedIn, and I've learned a lot from it, whether it be about building services, recruitment, or whatever it is. A lot of that, some of it's had a real lasting impact on me as well. So create some content as well, because again, this is going to get you showcased and actually build your own presence online so you're more visible. As I said, the more you comment on things online, the more you're going to actually show up, so to speak. So a lot of the time, I always will comment on posts that are industry relevant. I'll obviously think about what I'm going to comment and if this would be perceived in the right way. But this will help you, and it will actually help you be more visible on LinkedIn, especially, most definitely. So even down to the post that you may put up on LinkedIn, have a good think about that as well. Whatever way, shape, or form that may be. I saw some really awesome stuff the other week, which was a candidate uploaded a video of a BIM model of a project, and I sat there, I think I watched it about 5 times because I just thought it was brilliant. And that to me, that clearly he or she was allowed to share it, but that was awesome, and it really got me engaged with that individual as well. And I sent him a message and just said I thought that was brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's lovely to see what you all do. It helps my learning and understanding. So think about, as I say, that content that you're going to put out there and ensure it has a purpose behind it as well. The next thing is your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you fill it with information. I don't know, I wouldn't expect a lot of you to know, but when I'm looking on LinkedIn Recruiter and I'm doing a search for a specific candidate with specific experience, I can search keywords, and keywords are only going to actually be brought up if you have keywords on your profile. So make sure that, again, your LinkedIn profile essentially replicates your CV. Mine does. Mine's probably a bit too long, some might say, but it actually has a lot of content and a lot of keywords in it, specifically building services, MEP, recruitment, specialist, expert, all those sorts of keywords that people can search on, and LinkedIn's algorithms, whatever they may be, will help bring you up in a search a lot quicker as well. So replicate your CV. It's a 10-minute job. Copy and paste what you've put on each role onto your LinkedIn profile, and make sure your dates match on your employment. That's one thing I would definitely say, because me being skeptical sometimes, if the dates on a LinkedIn profile don't match with a candidate CV, that's going to make me ask some questions. So make sure it replicates the CV as well as you possibly can, and make sure, as I say, your profile has as much information on it as your CV does as well. Not just recruiters, but hiring managers will search for these things as well. HR teams, recruitment teams that are internally within businesses as well will search for certain keywords. So again, as I say, it will really help showcase and actually bring your portfolio online a lot more visible. Next is your presence online and perception. And as I say, sadly, we're in a very judgmental era. I think I can safely say with how people think about how people are perceived online and what the things that they share. So what you comment and what you share can have a very big impact on how people think about you. So do have a serious think, again, as I say, about the content that you're putting online, and really, how does that make you look? It's something to really have a think about as to how you're perceived online. Are you engaging? Are you negative? I've said it before, where sadly candidates have been really negative, commenting on posts, and people writing on my posts or a job ad saying this salary should be this. That doesn't give me the best feeling about that individual, and the perception that they're creating around their character and their personality. So as I say, have a think, because the last thing you want is to actually leave a negative impact on somebody and to potentially damage your reputation as well. So have a think, and be present is the other thing. When it comes to being your online presence, you have to have one. So as I say, engage with posts, comment on industry relevant topics, share content, use the hashtags as well on LinkedIn. It's a function that quite a lot of people use, so make sure you put those into your posts as well. This might scare some of you, I can safely say, but LinkedIn videos as well are important. It might not be something that you want to do, but recently I saw a candidate who I'd never spoken to before. Again, somebody actually liked it and commented on it that was in my network, so it brought it up on my feed, and I just literally sat there for, I think it was 5 minutes, absolutely absorbed in this guy's video. The fact that he'd actually put himself out there to shows confidence, shows initiative, and it's doing something different. So if you feel comfortable doing it, do it. I think a few of you have seen mine now. My first ones, I think, had about 10 takes per video, I think. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So whether that be about you and your experience, if you're looking, ideally, if you're working somewhere, probably not a wise idea to someone looking for a job. But if you are in an unfortunate position where you need a job, then this could be something that you can think about to showcase your experience. And again, as I say, really highlight who you are and what your experience has been in. And it's different than just a bit of paper on a CV. So the next point is and the last point actually, is making yourself stand out in a crowded market of job seekers even. As I touched on earlier, some of the roles that I'm advertising at the minute have got record numbers of applicants. So it's important for you to do your absolute level best to make sure you stand out. And I'll be going over a few of the things that I mentioned earlier, because there's no one size fits all for this. But these key points for me are really, really, really powerful to help you stand out. Whether you need a job or whether you're looking for your next career move, be the one who makes the effort. As I mentioned earlier, if you take the time to pick up the phone to people and speak to people, this will make you stand out massively. It shows a lot about your character, and the hiring managers and the recruitment consultants will respond very positively to proactive people. Be the one who phones, be the one who emails, who follows up even, as I mentioned earlier. Show your desire, show your passion, and show your energy, and show your commitment as well. I think that's very important. So be that person who stands out, who makes that phone call that the 200 other job seekers won't make, or 2 other job seekers in the case it may be. But be that person, make yourself stand out. As we always say, first impressions count, and they are very powerful. So as I touched on earlier, everyone I speak to, I want them to have a positive impression of myself when they hang up the phone. So for me, this is very important for you to think about as well, is to actually have a lasting impression with that person, whether it be a recruiter, whether it be a hiring manager. As I mentioned to you, this candidate I'm working with at the minute yesterday put that effort in to actually phone me back, first of all, which is brilliant. So I wasn't chasing her around the houses, which is fine, but it again shows her commitment. And she actually put together that presentation, which I didn't ask her to do, and the portfolio of her projects. So that to me has left a massive impression on me, as I'm sure you can tell by me doing this with my hands every 2 seconds. I'm so eager to help this lady because she's really left a lasting first impression with me as well. So make sure you do that in your communication with recruiters and with hiring managers as well. The other thing is also, if you're applying to a business, as I mentioned earlier, if you've been good and you've taken some of these points on and you've done your research, think about how you can actually add value to that company as well. And I would be tempted to mention that as well to the client, sorry, the company, the hiring manager, or the recruiter as well. That, you know, I've seen you're looking for X. This is my experience. This is what I really think I can do to add value to your business. You know, whether it be saving money, whether it be working on specific projects, whether it be their sustainability objectives. Net zero carbon, as I'm sure you all know, is a huge thing at the minute. So if you've got experience and passion in sustainability, for example, make sure that you mention that. But if you've made positive changes within a business, on a project, whatever it may be, think about how you can add value to that business as well. And make sure you mention it, sell yourself, as I say. It's huge in terms of making you stand out as well. And as I say, just to recap, what experience do you have that aligns with their service offering, with their values, with their objectives? The other thing for me as well is to demonstrate a growth mindset. Don't worry, I won't go into any coaching with you guys, but I think it's important that, you know, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedicated time and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. There's a good quote that I read recently. And for me, this really, the view creates a love of learning, and it shows that you're willing to go, you know, the extra mile. It shows that you're committed to actually progressing. And that could be doing CPD. It could be listening to audiobooks. I love an audiobook about performance and elite performance and stuff like this. I love reading books, yeah, education, stuff like that. Well, no matter where it is that you seek it, make sure you demonstrate that as well, whether it be in a conversation, in an interview, whether it be on a Teams interview, whether it be face-to-face, whatever it may be, whether it be speaking to a recruiter. You know, try and demonstrate that as well. What negatives have you turned into positives? That's quite a popular question that gets asked in interviews. I know that very well when it comes to the situational side of things. And, you know, what areas of yourself, for example, you might have highlighted something that could be perceived as a weakness that you may have thought you have or had, and how have you actually gone to improve them? What have you done? And that really shows a lot about somebody's character. The last point is, if you're in between jobs, upskill yourself. Again, it goes down to character. As above, it shows determination. It really shows that you're looking to develop your skills yourself if you're not working. And, you know, there's certain loads of websites, I think you can get cheap courses. So if you are in a real tight position at the minute, in between roles, then, you know, look online for things that are free. LinkedIn do some things as well that are free, from what I understand. Or ask experts. If you've got friends that are in the industry that have skills that you want to acquire, speak to them. Speak to your friend. Ask them. Reach out. Don't be scared to ask for help. You know, most people that, if they have an experience of some description, they want to share it with people. Hence why I'm sat here talking to you lovely people right now, is because I want to help people. So don't be afraid to reach out and speak to people that might have the experience that you want. Or, as I say, listen to audiobooks, read a book, do an online course. There's so many different things that you can do, and it shows character big time. So I'd certainly recommend doing that. That's the last point for me before we go on to the Q&A. But in closing, I think outside of these points, which I hope all firstly makes a lot of sense to you all, but that you can actually take away some really positive things from this. But one of the most important things for me is don't give up. Whether you are, as I said earlier, needing a job because you don't have one at the minute, or if you're looking for a career move, don't give up. Never, ever, ever give up. Believe in yourself and believe in the process. Getting a new job in a normal world, as I've mentioned, can feel like a full-time job. So in these times, it can be harder. But don't lose faith. Don't lose your confidence, and believe in yourself. Do the right things, and you will greatly improve your chances, I promise you. And that is all for me. Now it's on to the Q&A.
Thank you, James.
I've overrun.
No, it's okay. Very, very good, actually. I think it has been very, very interesting and very instrumental, very informative. And you have actually talked about certain point. I believe the audience or perhaps the applicants, when they are applying for a job, they can actually not think about what is once they submit the CV, what happens after between the recruiter and the client. Or what you explained there was actually quite interesting, like this kind of conflicts, like CVs sent to different recruiters at the same time, they go to the same company. So this kind of thing it has been very interesting what you have explained to bring awareness to the people on the, let's say, the hygiene of the process they follow when they're actually targeting a job that they are interested in. So, okay, we have a number of questions here that we are going to be asking to you, James. So you please can respond to them. I think you have quite a number of them.
Okay, excellent.
So the first one is regarding calling company. I tried with some companies to reach out with managers, but most of the time the secretary will ask for the reasons why you want to speak to them, and I won't be able to eventually speak to the manager. What would you say to that, James?
For me, a little recruitment trick for you here is to find, if you've, so I don't mean to answer a question with a question, but for me, if you found that individual, I would certainly just keep trying. And maybe, I know I said to try it on the phone. If that is exhaustive, if you're not getting responses from that, unfortunately, then I would say, to try and get an email sent over, because to be honest with you, I'm very experienced with that, because a lot of times when if I'm trying to call a new business and they hear the word recruitment, the line goes dead. So I understand, but if you know people within that business, then maybe see if you can try and find that person's mobile number or something along those lines. It's not a cloak and dagger move by any stretch of the imagination. But it may help you reach that person easier, or as I say, trying to call. I know it sounds a bit naughty, but maybe at a different time. You may get a bit different receptionist that may pick up the phone, that might be willing to put you through. But I'm sorry to hear that you haven't had much joy with that personally. But I think it is a very powerful thing to do, as I say, and especially do it with the recruiters. And when it comes to a company, if you haven't managed to find the individual that you need to talk to, then go and try and find that. And if you can't get their email address, another little trick is generally, exposing all my secrets here, is you can normally tell a company's email format. A lot of them are the same. So if you want to actually specifically get an email across to an individual, then you can normally find that by their generic email format.
Thank you for that.
That's
Next
all right.
question is, I think this is regarding the part where you explained about the follow-up. It's asking, would you ever consider an applicant to be too pushy, or would you respect them for their graft?
A bit of both. I think there's a fine line to a degree that, with all due respect, a recruiter, for me, sometimes I'm working with 10, 15 candidates at a time, if not more. It can be very hard, but it depends on the recruitment consultant themselves. I like people that follow up, because maybe I'm cynical, maybe I've done this job for too long, but there are instances over the years that I've done this that candidates have let me down quite a lot. And they promised I'm going to take X job, for example, and then they vanish off the face of the earth. So I never understand it, because I'd rather someone be honest and transparent, as I mentioned earlier. But for me, I think, do make sure you follow up, maybe not every day, twice a day. That might be a little bit extreme, but if you've agreed those milestones with the recruiter as well, they should want to pick up the phone to you. They should want to talk to you, but make sure it doesn't go on the side of stalking almost too much, but reach out, and it shows initiative, as I say. That to me, I like it.
Thank you for that, James. Let's go to the next question. Yeah, he says, I have two types of CVs, one detailed with all my years of experience and the summarized one with a graphic output and more appealing. Do you think it's better to send the detailed one or the summarized one? Thanks.
To be honest with you, I'd probably give if you were going to send it to, if the question is, do I send it to a recruiter? I would like to see both. For me, a lot of my clients, I generally know what sort of things they look for in CVs as well, so I can actually make that decision for you. I would be tempted to send both.
Mm-hmm.
If it's applying for a specific job, which one, and this is the thing that I would look at, study that job description, as I mentioned earlier, look at the key points that are in it and make the decision on which one of the two CVs actually showcases your experience the most. Because, as I say, if it is a box ticking thing, which it can be, you want to make sure the CV that you're submitting for that role really showcases what the client, specifically company, recruiter, whoever it is, has detailed on there that they're looking for.
Thank you, James. I think this links with the two interesting questions also, because we understand this. We're in the context of liaising directly with a good recruiter, let's say, active recruiter who respond to you. But there are two questions on online applications. Like when it's online application, the opportunity, or let's say the flexibility to share the information is a little limited. For example, you are redirected to a company online application systems. Mm-hmm. And you can only share one CV. You cannot share, for example, the CV, the portfolio together, and there is also a limitation in the size of the file you're uploading. And also, sometimes, even if you work out the profile, the format, the presentation, you are requested to transfer that content into the system. So what actually goes probably to an engine search, unfortunately, is the content only. Yeah, very, very, kind of a basic, gross, only text. That's what goes to the employees. So what is your view on that when you actually don't have a job? When the candidate is actually trying through a company online system application?
That can be very frustrating, I know, and sadly, there's some we see that side as well, because there are some clients specifically that I work with that we're forwarded to an online application system as well. For me, that can go back to trying to get hold of the hiring manager as well, and speaking to somebody there, or gaining somebody's email address who is that recruiting manager, for example, within a business, whether it be an associate director or TD director, whoever it may be, because it's difficult to actually really get that across if the platform isn't allowing you to. So you could, by all means, try and speak to somebody within the recruitment team of a business, or trying to speak to HR to mention that as well, that you want to give yourself the best opportunity for this role. You've seen it online. You think it matches your experience, but you want to make sure you showcase yourself as well as you can. So may I have your email address, or take a email address to send that CV to?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that will help.
Yeah, hopefully. Next question. Let me see here. It's from someone called Manny. He asks, how has the current market in the UAE been affected by COVID-19?
Sadly, affected quite a lot. There's a lot of, in the sense of projects specifically in the UAE, I know that there seems to be quite a big lull, sadly. However, there are specific clients that I'm working with in Dubai who have picked up quite a lot of work down in Abu Dhabi, and a lot of, from my own market share, I suppose, if you want to look at it from that perspective, the consultancies that I speak to very regularly, a lot of the work that they've got is in Saudi. So a lot of the consultancy practices have the teams within the UAE that are delivering the projects for Saudi. So sadly, it is very tough, but I'll be clearly openly and honest with you about that. It's not the best it's been, I can certainly say. But there are conversations I've had with people recently of some green shoots. I hate that phrase, but it's quite relevant, of recovery for the market as well. I think it just needs some big projects. Hopefully the government will put some money into some big projects there, and also external investors as well, for some big projects in the UAE, because it needs an influx, doesn't it? I think we can all agree, of some Dubai and Abu Dhabi based projects, for the market to actually start to bounce back.
Definitely, I fully agree with you. There's another question from Andrew Sabil, CIBSE UAE mentor. He says, an excellent presentation. I don't think adding a personal photo to a CV is of value. What do you think?
Again, this is very subjective. It really is. I'm really on the fence with it, because the problem is that there's only one CV that really stands out in my mind, was where a candidate put a picture on the CV of him, his whole body stood up, which I thought was a bit different, by the side of a pier or something like that in the UK, and it looked like it was raining. So that was a bit, but generally I don't have a problem with it, but that's me. I can't tell you how others would actually look at that. I don't think it can be dangerous. I think some people, as I mentioned earlier, how judgmental the world is becoming, sadly. I personally, I wouldn't say it's the best thing to do. Sorry to be so non-committal, but I'm on the fence with it, I would say. If you've got a good picture, make sure it's professional. That's one key point if you're really adamant to put one on the CV. But yeah, I can't remember the last time I wrote a CV, but I wouldn't put my picture on my CV, if that helps.
Okay, thank you for that insight.
That's right, because I'm getting
Another question here is, okay, how soon do you follow up after sending your CV to a company for consideration?
I'd probably give it 24 to 48 hours, generally as a rule of thumb. A lot of different businesses, I appreciate some of you that are in positions where you're recruiting teams, or you're managing teams, and recruiting for your own teams. I know a lot of clients here in the UK will do their resource meetings on Thursdays with HR. Some do it bi-weekly, some do it monthly. So it depends on the specific business, and how committed they are, really, I think, to finding the individual. And I think if you can beat everybody else by picking up the phone and following up in 24 hours and saying, I have sent you my CV, this is my name, this is what I do, this is what I've done, I think that will help you stand out, definitely.
Okay. Nelson is asking, brilliant session. In the context of minimizing the number of recruitment advisors, what is your view about working with multiple consultants within the same agency?
For me, again, that would really go down to the experience. So to give you a bit of an overview, I'm not going to say don't do it, because I'll be contradicting my own team. But my team specifically, this isn't a sales pitch, it's just to give you an understanding, is myself. I've recruited in our industry for 15 years. My colleague Graham Simmons, he's recruited in building services design in the UK for 25 years. And my other colleague Dominic used to be a mechanical design engineer before we turned into the dark side of recruitment. So there's value in all of us, and the way that we work is we have our own clients. So I have relationships with a specific amount of clients in the UK and overseas as well, and Graham and Dominic will have their own set lists of clients. What you want is to find and actually ask the question, how does that work? How does it work within that recruitment company? Because sadly, recruitment can be a dog-eat-dog industry. It really is. And, there's targets and big targets that are put on people's heads, and some companies aren't as ethical as ourselves and others that have a good reputation, where your details might not be shared. So I really would try and gauge that when you speak to that recruiter, and how does it work? Do you have colleagues in your team that will call me? If they haven't told you that already, if they have, then feel free to ask the question. How does it work? Where's my CV going to go? Who's going to contact me? Because for me, the way that I work, if I speak to a candidate, whether I've called them or they've approached me, I immediately will speak to Graham and Dominic and say, I've spoken to whoever it may be. This is their experience. All my notes are on the system. I think he or she may be worth contacting for this role you have, this role you have, this role you have, and we collaborate and share very well. Our mindset is the team wins, the business wins, as much as we have our own individual targets. So sorry it's such a long answer, but because that's literally what we do here. So ask the question, I would say.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Okay, from a fresher, who does not have any experience yet, what would you suggest on how to find the right job for beginning the career?
If you've just graduated, congratulations, first of all. Secondly, I personally wouldn't approach recruitment companies. There are some that deal specifically with graduates, but for me personally, I think I've probably placed, I can count on one hand how many graduates I've placed over the last 15 years. So your best bet would be to apply to graduate programs. If it's a design engineering role you're looking for, then most of the clients that I work with, they're all on their websites, the graduate opportunities and stuff as well. So yeah, do your research on the consultancies if that is your field and apply directly to them. It's not often I tell people don't deal with a recruiter, but the honest opinion is a lot of companies won't pay a recruitment fee for a graduate. With all due respect, that's the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting to know that. There's another question saying on online applications, how do you advise people can follow up?
On an online application, sorry, did you say?
Yeah, on an online application, how to follow up? Like I think what we're trying to say is it's a system, so it's you speak to a robot, so you don't really know behind how to follow up.
And that's the frustrating thing. It really is, you know, because as I said earlier, your CV can literally just go into a black hole. So I would follow up by telephone. If you know, hopefully, who that business is or that recruitment company is, when you read the job description, some of the time for certain consultancies, if it's a internal recruitment team that some of the businesses have, it may actually have the name of the individual within the body of the job advert. So I would phone up and try and get that highlighted for sure. I get applications that come through from different websites that I generally tend to advertise on, and it's essentially I am responsible for checking that every day. If I don't, then someone's CV will get lost. So it's important, and it's, as I say, I've been guilty of it over the years that I may have missed something because I've been doing something else, and then the candidates phone me to highlight their CV. So yeah, keep trying. If it is a business directly, hopefully the receptionist will be in a happy mood, and we'll put you through to the hiring manager.
That's right.
But don't say recruitment. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Don't say recruitment because they might think that you're a recruitment consultant. So make sure that you mention you are an engineer and you are looking for a role and looking to speak to the hiring manager or to the recruitment team. Sorry, Alejandro, I just thought that was
important. Problem. No, it was actually important not to add that. Good. So next question is saying, what advice would you give someone who is based in the UK and is looking to relocate to the UAE in terms of differences in recruitment between the two countries? Yeah,
there's a big difference, and that's again, it's important to find a specialist. I would say most definitely, if you're looking to relocate, and you need someone that's going to be honest with you. As I say, I don't pull any punches in what I mentioned earlier, that sadly the UAE market isn't very good at the minute. So the last thing I'm going to do to say to someone, I'm sorry if I'm killing your dreams, is to get on a plane and, you know, when we're allowed to go and find a job, because it's tough. It really is. So what I would do, which again is important, is to try and highlight what you want to achieve, that you want to actually relocate across the world to develop your career. There's a common misconception, I think, historically for candidates from the UK. Some objections that I had from clients when candidates were interviewed was that they're only coming here for the money. Genuinely, that was actually something that was fed back to me a lot by businesses, because the candidates would say in the interview, why do you want to come and work in the Middle East? Oh, it's tax-free, I want to earn loads of money. That's not the right thing to say. Make sure that you're actually trying to mention that you want to advance your career, and that you probably find at the minute, because of costs and the implication with costs for every business right now, everyone's been suffering over the last 12 months or so in their own individual ways, that companies may actually not want to recruit someone from the UK through a recruiter. So it may be your best bet to actually apply directly to a business with the methods that I've actually mentioned. Or if you've got friends, or connect with people on LinkedIn, find out the businesses that hire what you do within your role, and whenever you add, and this applies to everybody, whenever you add somebody within a business on LinkedIn, make sure you write a message. It gives you that option to add a message, and make sure you mention that in there.
Interesting. Thank you, James. There's a hot question here. I think it's interesting. What to say? I mean, what strategy you should follow when you are asked, what are your salary expectations?
Be honest. Genuinely be honest. For me personally, and I think it's quite sad in many ways that, salary, especially for, I think, British people, it's a secret. It's generally frowned upon, I think, here in the UK. People don't normally want to divulge it even to their friends, which is fine. But be honest, if I ask a candidate that, it's purely for my own knowledge. If I've got a client that's paying, because I've spoken to my client and I've asked them what their budget is, if they say that they want to pay hypothetically 35 to 38,000 AED per month, if you're on 22, why? You might be grossly underpaid and be doing a huge amount more than actually what your role entails. And I had that years ago with I'll never forget her. She was a fire engineer, and I remember she was paid grossly underpaid by a business. I managed to place her with an international consultancy and trebled her salary. That's my job, The work that she's doing, she should be paid what her, I hate to say this, her value within the market is. So I would always be honest. If a candidate is cagey with me, generally with salary, it does make me ask a question, because I look for that transparency and honesty. But as soon as I've asked that question, I would immediately give the candidate the number that the client's looking to pay. So it shouldn't. I think there's as I say, a misconception about that question specifically. Any ethical and experienced recruitment consultant wouldn't use that to their advantage in either way, in trying to, make the company pay more and make the candidate pay less. That literally doesn't make sense to me. So I would say always be honest, but always make sure if that recruiter hasn't told you, get them to tell you what the specific package is. And likewise, if you're speaking to a company directly, I would ask them what their budget is. I had a candidate, sorry that I know I'm taking a lot of your time in the evening, but I think it's quite important. I had a candidate, somebody that I've known for years, in fact, interviewed, must have been about 6 to 12 months ago. It must have been this year's flown by. And he did not want to disclose his salary to the client in the interview. They were only purely asking what his expectations were, and he said he didn't want to discuss it. And the director of that business found that very strange, and they didn't hire him purely based on that, which for me is crazy because he could do the job. But it was that, why is he not being honest with us? We're being honest with him. I think,
exactly. Yeah.
And the UAE can be a bit different. I understand that, and I mean this with the greatest amount of respect. I know there's a multitude of businesses that are out there with different cultures and all sorts of different ways. But if it's an international business that you're applying to, have faith in them. They're not going to try and stitch you up. I know pretty much every international consultancy that's in the Middle East, and I have done for years, and I've never known anybody getting done over, so to speak, with what they should be paid.
Yes, there is a question related to this topic, so I'm going to ask it now. It's Mohammed. He says, you are saying to be honest, but if I just want a job, I don't want to ask for my last salary and then get rejected because it is too much.
Yeah, and that is a frustrating thing. But that, to me, if I'm not sure, Mohammed, if the question is related to a recruitment consultant, for example, but you know, I've had it over the last 12 months, 2 years, where people from the UAE have come back to the UK, for example, and we've been trying to find them roles back here, and the salary over there is here and the UK is here. You know, there's a big difference. But I think, again, that could go down to your application as well, and how you actually word that to the client. That, look, I understand that I'm on X. What's your budget? And try and come to a solution. If you're miles and miles apart, it doesn't work, then okay. But for me, what somebody was earning, that shouldn't discount them from a role if they're serious at all. I think it's how you answer that question, how you relate that to somebody is, again, it's down to perception. Because I know I've talked for days, I'm sorry, but in the UK, there's the contract market here for people that get paid hourly. You know, they have a limited company, so they get, historically, have got taxed a lot less. So their earnings are more. They earn more than a permanent candidate, for example, that could be sat next to them. So that's all changing now because the government has brought in a new regulation. And there's a misconception with candidates that now want to go from contract to permanent, that they're going to leave as soon as the contract market, if it does pick up, picks up, which is frustrating. And again, I think if it's, the question is about a recruitment consultant, it's about having that conversation with them. If it's about the client and the hiring manager, I hope you get access to actually speak to that individual. If not, put it on your application within the body if there's an opportunity for an online application.
Thank you, James, for that. So there's a question from Sanjay saying, would you consider a CV marked with a great scores or without great scores?
I generally, good question, because I asked the question yesterday. There was a candidate that sent me his CV and it didn't have the grade on his CV. So I asked him purely on the basis that if that individual has a first, for example, that's something that I can showcase. It's something that I can tell the client if they've got a 2-1, whatever it may be. But I know my client is going to ask me ultimately, what did they get? So I wouldn't, be afraid to put it on the CV. The only thing that I think does raise questions if degrees aren't finished. I've had that question posed to me a few times where somebody hasn't finished their studies, and that may be for a personal reason, but it has raised question marks about somebody's character. Why didn't they fulfill their studies? For me, I didn't. It doesn't make me judge somebody at all. But as I say, you know, a world where everyone's map of the world is different, that can be a question that's asked. I'll put it on the CV.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Especially if you haven't, make sure your other experience stands out, because that should not cost you a job. Definitely,
you're right. Yeah, there is another question here on interesting in terms of confidence. So in a transition, like you have applied for a job, how to make sure that the offer letter and the intent from the employer is actually serious, and you don't get trapped in a process where you already got an offer letter, because of that you resign from your current employer, and then maybe just a step back, they actually say, oh, sorry, apologies, we actually don't have this vacancy anymore, or we changed opinion, and well, you just get there in the middle of nowhere, having resigned and without any new job. So how to kind of what tips, what to check to make sure that that the employer or recruiter is actually being serious and it's not a fake?
That's a horrible situation to be in, and I think anybody that was, I think I can safely say, in March last year, we had sadly a lot of offers that were out for various candidates all around the world, even out in the Caribbean for my team that recruit out there, and back in the UK that were pulled, unfortunately, because of COVID. It was complete unforeseen circumstances, but luckily that only seems to happen every 100 years or so, touch wood, once this is behind us. But I would ask the question in the interview process, if the opportunity arises, if it doesn't, then I would just ask the client anyway. I always advise people to ask questions at an interview. What is your project pipeline? That is a question you're more than entitled to ask, by all means, because it gives you an understanding of the stability of the business. I had a chat with a guy I've known for years yesterday, who might be on this call actually, or maybe 2 weeks ago, not yesterday, sorry. He was asking me about a specific company he's had an offer for. My first word of advice, because it wasn't through me, was, have you asked them what they've got? You know, is this just because, you know, we get it ourselves as well, and it's part of what I call the qualification process of a job. I qualify every job that I work on to ascertain if the client is serious, because otherwise it's a waste of my time. In reality, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but it's true. I could spend hours and days and weeks trying to fill a job that will go nowhere. So I definitely would encourage you to ask the question. If you know people that work there, as I've always said, try and do a little bit of digging if you can, to find out if that business has projects or not, because the last situation you want to be in is, you know, handing in notice in, as you say, and then the offer getting pulled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, James. So I'm going to take 2 more questions and then we'll be wrapping up, mindful of time. So you have actually a lot of questions, James. So basically, ideal size of a CV, I mean, how many pages approx?
That's what I was saying earlier. Unfortunately, it's quite subjective, but I would say 2 to 3 pages generally is good. 2 pages seems to be the preferred option for very many people, but as I say, if it starts to go on to 3, that's not a problem. I only really think, wow, if I get a lot of, I've had a candidate CV with like 15 pages once. So 2 to 3.
Okay, that's a clear response. Thank you. Another question here is, where can a candidate find out about average salaries in the market?
I can send you a salary survey. That's the benefit of speaking to someone like an expert like myself. I do that for clients and for candidates pretty much twice a year in the different markets that I work in, and that's based on real intel. And the intel is, I send that questionnaire out to clients. The clients will fill out what their salary bandings are. I will also then compare that against the offer letters that we've had for candidates in the market. And funnily enough, as you may have mentioned earlier, the question about do I tell someone my salary? From that information as well, I will average that and then generally give a range. Well, not generally, there is a range for the lower end of that specific job. If it's an intermediate engineer, senior, principal, associate, TD, etc., etc. So if you're a building services design engineer, drop me a message and I'll send you the salary survey, no problem.
That's very good. Thank you, James. With this, I think we'll wrap a little bit the session. I want to really thank you for your insight, your tips. I think this is very important for our engineering community in current and unprecedented times. I hope also the audience have actually enjoyed this session and getting some level of inspiration and perhaps clarify some level of confusion you may have. And yeah, anything you may have additional queries or something, James Mowat is there on LinkedIn. You can ask him. I'm sure he's going to be pretty happy to respond to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, James. And yeah, follow CIBSE on LinkedIn. You know where we are. We have a Twitter account as well. You can visit on our www.cibse.org, and you can write us any question that you may have on uae@cibse.org. So thank you very much to everybody for being with us this evening, and see you on our next CIBSE UAE webinar. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.